They say that talking to yourself is a sign of insanity. But I think that's only if you answer back, right? Right. This is Talking to Myself, the art advice podcast where I use anecdotes from my life to try to make myself a better artist, and maybe a better person. Hopefully other people will also benefit from this, but mostly I'm just trying to avoid paying for therapy. Today on the podcast, I thought we'd discuss an issue that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Most people are coming out of quarantine in the world, the COVID-19 situation, whether that's wise or not the issue I want to discuss. The point is, this whole pandemic situation has brought up the concept of what an essential job is, what I guess is important to society, enough to risk people's lives, literally in some cases, to perform that job. And the reason I bring it up in the context of art is because, to most people's reckoning, artist is not an essential job of any kind. I'd find that a little arguable in the broader sense. Now, of course, during a pandemic, being an artist doesn't put you in public, generally speaking, so that doesn't even come up as kind of a non-issue. But the idea that people have always had, that art and artist is non-essential and sort of a secondary job, most people would say, you know, if you're an artist, what else do you do? And sadly, that's always been true. I've always had another job when I'm trying to be an artist. And funny enough, my actual real job during this whole pandemic is essential. So nothing has really changed for me this entire time, except the number of people who aren't working around me has gone up. But as it relates back to art and the necessity of art, or what the art is for, why art, and should that be a job, I think my philosophy is anything that you can do to make money can be a job. That's the definition of a job, right? That's how, if you do something and then someone pays you for it, then you are a professional at that thing, whatever that thing is. It doesn't matter what it is. If someone's willing to pay you to do something, then it's a job and you're a professional at it. In that sense, being an artist is, of course, a job, because you can make art and sell it and make money. There are also jobs that are more like regular, quote-unquote, regular jobs that are basically just making art, but because you're making it for a commercial product, you are therefore employed in a standard commercial type job. You just happen to be producing assets for a commercial product. Both of those are completely legitimate as far as I'm concerned. I would like to be the kind of artist who makes art and then sells it. That's sort of been my goal. That's my target. But I'm not at all adverse to the concept of working in an art career where you produce art for products. And I would consider all those essential beyond just the standard, yes, it's a real job kind of idea. I think that making art is essential to people who do it because it's something that we have to do to be satisfied. The point of life is not necessarily what you can earn and buy and have or even produce, really. It's sort of like, I've come around lately to this idea that life should be more about what we can experience and how we can sort of help other people experience things and sort of live together as a group. I don't know, that's a sentiment that's pretty heady on people's minds as well, because of the other major issue that's happening in the world right now, the ending of systemic racism in culture. It's a huge movement, and as well it should be. I'm glad something's finally happening. I feel like I'm taking part in some small way in something that could be historic. And this is sort of like one of those points when the world sort of hinges around an idea. And I think that's great. I'm saddened and disappointed that it's taken this much effort and this much time for something like this to happen, but I'm glad it's happening. Caring about other people is something that I consider valuable. And I think that making art is, in some small way, something I can do to help with that. Now, that doesn't mean that I make a lot of political art. It doesn't mean that I necessarily do a lot of charity art, although I have done some charity stuff lately, as I feel like I should, and I try to do some whenever I can. But mostly, what I'd like to think of it is, I share my art. Maybe it doesn't help people to see, tentacle monsters writhing in a pool, or a giant meatball with a face, or any of the bizarre things I draw. But maybe they go on Instagram and they see it and it makes them smile. Maybe that happens. Maybe someone buys a t-shirt with a little goblin on it that is irritated and doesn't want to do anything because it makes them smile. And maybe they wear the t-shirt and someone else sees it and it makes them smile or think or laugh. You know, that kind of thing is valuable. I think it has value to do that. So I think in many ways, art should be considered essential. If not necessarily on the rolls of government or in the judgment of the financial world, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is the impact you can have on other people and the way you can try to make the world a better place. And art is good at that. So here's the part where I talk to my future self, and this time anybody else who's interested and listening and who makes art and might feel a little discouraged that in these giant world-altering issues right now, maybe your, Mario Brothers fan art is not that big a deal. It doesn't really matter how big a deal it is. If it makes you feel better, then that's a good thing. And if it makes someone else feel better or think or laugh, that's also a good thing. So those are reasons to keep going. And if you're not into making art right now, but you'd like to be, you shouldn't be afraid to because you feel like there are larger issues at hand. I understand there are. But this is sort of like the kind of thing you can help a little bit every day. And beyond your own efforts, the things you make and put out in society can help beyond the time it took you to make them and put them out. So think about that. Think about continuing to make stuff and continuing to share it, because the world will always need these things, if only to keep artists from going crazy because they can't make anything. Okay, so that's my advice to myself this time. Hopefully someone else can get some help out of that. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Special thanks to my supporters on Patreon. You guys get to hear and see these videos a week earlier than everyone else, in addition to some other things, and you are the shiniest people I know. Everybody take care. Have another great week. Stand up for someone if you have the chance. And try to make someone else feel good if you can. I'll catch you next time.